The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell. This is, by the way, our 280th program.
Good.
There you go.
As I traditionally say here, in the flesh.
In the flesh. Tom is in the flesh. I'm not sure what I'm in, but maybe it's trouble. Okay, every day I go to the internet and I find as much news as I can on energy and climate change. Every news item I find that I think is interesting, I put together a 50 or 55 word synopsis. And I put a link on that to the original article, and I assembled 10 to 15 of those together and put them up on a blog called geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. And that blog has a calendar. If you go to it, you'll find a calendar on the left. And if you click on a date, it'll give you the blog post for that date. And we are starting on the 30th of August for this show,
Right.
for blog news. And we have some really neat stuff this week.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I'll try and inform our listeners, watchers, viewers. I guess viewers is the word.
Viewers.
That some of the ones that I think are particularly compelling. And I want to start right off. The very first article we're going to talk about is a very good article.
I actually turned that article into a general discussion about not fossil fuels, but baseload power and renewable power, and made that into an article for Clean Technica, which is not in this week's show.
No, but we might talk about it in the future.
Yeah, a viewer who wants to see it can go to Clean Technica and probably search on the name Harvey, and it'll come up.
Well, as I said, this is a very good article, very informative, and as far as I'm concerned, technically, it's a great idea, but politically it might be in trouble.
Yep. This article comes from Government Technology.
Ah.
And you have a title.
I certainly do. Los Angeles wants to use the Hoover Dam as a giant battery. The hurdles could be more historical than technical.
Los Angeles is looking into whether it should spend an estimated $3 billion on a massive 20-mile underground pumped hydro storage system that could be connected to the iconic Hoover Dam.
I guess you'd call it iconic. I've been there. It's a big dam.
This is a big dam. It's the largest. It's the 6th largest hydro dam in the United States.
And if you're trying to locate it on a map, I guess it's Nevada. It's shaped like a triangle.
Yes.
And this is at the lower left point.
Yes.
Almost at the exact point.
Yes.
So, a little background here. Hoover Dam is on the Colorado River outside of Las Vegas, okay? And the Colorado itself is a shrinking river due to climate change and long-term drought. And there's been long-term drought down there.
And Lake Mead behind the Hoover Dam is just, it is really badly.
Really bad. It flows from tributaries in Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah, down through Nevada and Arizona, into Mexico, and into the Lower California
Gulf of Baja California.
Baja California, something like that. Okay, it has created Lake Mead, which is a 250 square mile reservoir. That's pretty large.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and it provides water to Arizona, California, and Nevada, plus the present turbines generate electricity.
Yeah.
When they're running water through the dam, which isn't all the time.
Yeah.
Because they impound water back there
for
whatever needs they needed. So the proposed plan, and it's a good idea, it would use wind and solar power to pump water from below the Hoover Dam back upstream.
Yeah.
Depositing water into Lake Mead to be released again at a future time.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Now, here's where the problem exists. The river is regulated by an agreement forged among 7 western and southwestern states in 1922.
You know, Tom, I just realized we've got a picture of that and we haven't put it up yet.
Haven't even put it up yet.
That's right.
Duh. Well,
Duh.
let's take a look at it.
Anyway, you were saying between...
In 1922,
Yeah,
these 7 states agreed to split the water up.
yeah.
In a way, they
Yes.
all wanted it, you know.
Yeah.
So they finally agreed how they were going to divvy
And
it up.
nobody paid any attention to what the Mexicans want.
No, not at all.
This is, I mean, I'm laughing. It's extremely sad. The Mexicans had a lot of farms down there that just went bone dry because the Hoover Dam was put in.
They stole all the water.
Yeah.
So in any case, what this article is about is that they're going to start arguing over the water again if something like this happens.
There's going to be a little bit of political turmoil over this,
for
no
sure.
doubt, if they pursue it, which they might
for
not.
sure.
But it's an interesting idea.
Let's move on to the next one because
Okay,
it's
our
also
next one
pretty interesting.
is one that I find actually more interesting. This is from Clean Technica.
The Tesla big battery responds to power system emergency in Australia. Now, this wasn't planned.
No. Lightning strike caused power system emergency across the eastern Australian states. Lights barely flickered in South Australia as the Hornsdale Power Reserve backed up the grid, and in Queensland as home battery systems filled the gap there.
So in Queensland, it was distributed.
Yep.
And in South Australia, it was this Hornsdale Power Reserve, which, by the way, I looked up. It's about 130 40-foot boxes.
Yes.
It's just a big array of boxes, every one of which is full of batteries.
That's right. It looks like a storage place that you'd find out in the countryside someplace.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it is, really.
Really,
They're
it is.
storing electricity.
But the thing that's interesting to me about this is the states that had the outage, which were South Australia, Queensland, Victoria, and New South Wales.
Opposite ends of the country.
Well, really, if you think of South Australia and Queensland, it's like New England and Texas. They're kind of opposite. They're north to south, but this is more than half the people in the country. It's more than half the population.
Most of Australia's desert. We don't realize that.
And it's an area that's kind of similar to the United States east of the Mississippi River. Lightning strikes caused the whole thing to come down. Mm-hmm. But in South Australia, they had the Hornsdale Power Reserve, so South Australia cut itself off from Victoria and New South Wales. And then in Queensland, they had all these home batteries.
Which is just happened.
It just happened. And I think we've got another story this week about solar systems in Queensland. I think a third of all the houses in Queensland have got solar systems.
And these people are doing this on their own.
They're doing it on their own.
They don't have government subsidies.
No, we've got a situation here where all of a sudden, the benefit of this is very, very clear, and the federal government, of course, takes credit for the everything that happens that's good and blames renewable power for everything that happens that's bad. But
the crazy politics down there is worse than ours.
I don't know about that, but Well,
there's a takeaway here, and it makes some sense. If you think it is merely a coincidence that Australia and the U.S. are both hostages to fossil fuel advocates, you're simply not paying attention.
Yeah, that's true.
Fossil fuel interests are busy committing crimes against humanity in the background while they continue to stuff their pockets
with
oil-soaked cash and coal-polished coin.
Yes,
and then use some of that money to buy influence at the highest levels. No, they wouldn't do that.
No question about it. I mean, absolutely. And in the United States, it's legal, so you can actually see what's going on. We've got Citizens United that says you're allowed to distribute as much money into the political system as you like if you're a corporate person.
Wow. Money talks, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Well, we got another picture coming up.
Yeah, we do. This is from WBFO.
Let's see if I can get this picture up here.
There you go.
Now, that is the Gasweiler mine.
Gartzweiler. Gartzweiler.
I'll take it.
Garzweiler.
Garzweiler is better than Gasweiler, I tell you that. Now that's nearly 20 square miles, and it's a lignite mine. It's not even coal.
That's right.
It's on its way from turning from peat into coal.
This is a coal of a grade that is so low that they won't even dig
We
it.
don't use it here.
They won't even dig for it
No.
unless there's a power plant that's really, really close, because it's not worth transporting by rail.
Well, we're not, as far as I know, we're not mining lignite.
We're not mining lignite
anywhere in
but
the country.
20 square miles. This is not the
That's pretty
largest.
big.
No, but it's not the largest lignite mine in Germany. I should read the.
Yeah,
the
I think you should,
thing
because
here.
it's informative.
The village of Keienberg is in a German region with a long history of coal mining in the heart of the country's post-war industrial growth. It is ancient and atmospheric, with ruins dating from the Roman era. It will be destroyed to extend an open pit mine. So they've got this mine that actually, I believe, is the mine.
It is the mine, yep.
That is near Keienberg. I believe EY is an unusual combination in German. The article talks about a farmer whose father told him, get off the farm. They're going to extend this mine.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. And this village has got buildings in it that are medieval, and they are simply being
historical.
Torn down
Yep.
to make way for that hole in the ground.
Well, according to the article, by 2023, which is not too far in the future,
Yeah.
Keienberg, or however you say it, will
Yep.
be entirely demolished.
Yeah.
Lignite, which is the single most polluting energy source, according to the article, has already claimed nearly 50 villages in the region. And since the mid-1950s, more than 40,000 people have been displaced by it.
Yeah.
40,000 people. That's
Yeah.
more than people in Brattleboro.
It's more than the people in Windham County.
Yeah.
We had an article a couple of years ago about a similar mine that was going to be dug in an area of Germany that is not far from the Polish border. And the mine was going to be, by the time it was done, twice as big as the island of Manhattan. So
I vaguely remember that one.
This is huge. And why are we doing this? In order to get the most polluting fuel we can possibly get. And as I said, the fuel is so useless that there's no way that it can be transported by rail. It's got to go directly.
Economical.
Yeah, it's got to go directly from the mine into the furnaces. It makes me think of something out of Lord of the Rings, where. Okay, we are up to Friday, August 31st, and we have an item here from Cal Matters.
Climate change is going to cost California, and the bill will be staggering.
As California lawmakers struggled this week to address an apparent new normal of epic wildfires, there's an inescapable subtext. Climate change is going to be staggeringly expensive, and virtually every Californian is going to have to pay for it. I got news for you, everybody.
Well, that's part of what this article is about. The ratepayers, somehow or another, they put in some legislation that the ratepayers are going to share in the cost.
Well, if you think about it, what is coastal water in Florida worth? How much is it going to cost to build a seawall to retain the value of that property?
I'm not sure they can do it.
Well, I don't think they can. They certainly can't on the budget of Florida.
Yeah.
So should the United States government get involved? We're in an era here where
New Jersey's in almost as much trouble as Florida.
And we were talking about Connecticut.
Connecticut.
I think it was last week where one town in Connecticut has lost $137 million in property value, taxable property value, because of rising seas.
Shorefront property used to be very desirable.
My son lives in a house which is near Long Island Sound, and there's a little stream that runs by the house.
Yeah, in Connecticut.
Yeah. And he said a couple of years ago, for the first time, that stream backed up to the house with ocean water.
Wow.
So
wow, that's scary.
It is, and they're talking about moving the house. His house is gigantic. And they're talking about picking it up
Moving
on
it?
jacks and moving it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It can be done. I understand before I came here that they moved the St. Michael's Church, the Protestant St. Michael's Church, which is stone. They moved it from Main Street up to Putney Road.
Really? I didn't know that.
That's what I read about it.
Wow.
Yeah, on,
Of course,
on
they
a
may have-
trailer.
on a trailer.
Yeah.
Wow.
or a couple of trailers.
Wow.
There are pictures of that because I have seen pictures pictures of it.
Okay.
I wouldn't have thought it could be done.
We have another picture coming up, I think. And
Yeah, well,
and,
let's see.
An
Let's
item
see.
from
Do we have another picture coming up?
Reuters.
We do have another picture. By Jove.
Yeah,
I think he's got it.
he probably does. This is from Reuters.
This one came from Reuters, and it says the Trump administration reconsiders rule on coal's mercury pollution.
The EPA said it is reconsidering part of an Obama-era rule on emissions of mercury from coal-fired plants. Its latest move to ease the coal industry regulations. Mercury is dangerous to pregnant women and can put infants and children at risk of developmental problems.
Well,
Now,
I'm going to bring that picture up again.
Yeah,
That's
this-
an actual picture from Kentucky.
this is a serious problem that's been around ever since people started burning coal. And of course, it was not a widespread problem until they started burning coal for electricity. But basically, you know, if you think about it, 100 years ago, there was a thriving fishing fleet in Lake Champlain. And that fleet
Yeah,
does not
well,
exist
it's
anymore.
gone, right.
And the reason is because the fish are all poisonous. Now, how poisonous? Well, it depends upon the size of the fish and the
who
species,
you are and-
who you are, whether you're a pregnant woman or a child. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and there's a certain number of fish that you can eat safely if you apply the rules. But nevertheless, it was enough to destroy the fishing fleet. Who paid for the destruction of the fishing fleet?
Well, over in New Hampshire, near where you used to live,
Mm-hmm.
one of the roads goes right by a river,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a little area there
Mm-hmm.
where you can pull your car off and fish. The big sign there says you can't eat the fish from this water.
Yeah, and there's a river in Vermont where nothing that you take out of that river should be considered edible by anybody, and that's the river that goes through Pownell.
Okay,
And-
yeah.
But there's, you know, if you go to the Vermont State Fishing, I guess I fish and game, but it's, or Agency of Natural Resources or whatever, but they have an online place that you can go to find out what fish are suitable from what water. And it varies enormously from species to species.
Well, you can usually eat catfish, but you usually can't eat trout.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, the latest move by the administration to ease regulations, this is the latest move
Yeah.
by the administration to ease regulations on an industry important to President Donald Trump's political base.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what this is about.
And one of the problems here is once that mercury gets into the water, there's no
You're not gonna get
feasible
it
way
out.
to get it out again. It's going to stay there, and it does settle to the bottom if it's liquid mercury, but it isn't liquid mercury. It's a
Mercuric oxide or something like that.
it's a I've forgotten the exact, but it's an organic substance which is soluble in water and concentrates in the fish. So the fish that eat other fish are the ones where it gets highest.
Well, the mercury rule has forced coal plants to add pollution controls to their facilities,
And the
which isn't working
Trump
very well.
administration doesn't want to force the coal plants to do anything
Well, that's
except
been a
make money.
factor causing plants to shut down and driving down the cost of coal and driving down the use of coal to the lowest level in decades. 2016, the Obama EPA found the cost justified as the rules save customers on health care bills, which we've talked about here
Absolutely.
a lot. I mean, it's a hidden cost, but it's a real cost.
It's a real
That's a
cost.
very large cost.
And it's a big cost. It may be $1,000 per person in Vermont.
Now let's move along to
year.
the next one here.
Okay, the
We're
next
back.
one comes from PV Magazine International.
California Energy Storage Subsidy Extension passes Assembly. Well, this isn't law yet, but it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and there is a little consternation because Governor Brown still hasn't signed it. After the passage of a California bill to mandate 100% carbon-free electricity by 2045. Another bill which may contain some of the key features that to making that happen has passed the Assembly. It will support the installation of nearly 3 gigawatts of behind-the-meter storage.
Well, they're going to need some kind of storage, so if this doesn't pass, something else like it's going to have to.
Something's going to have to happen. Yes, there's no question about that. Should we go on?
Yeah, we got another nice picture coming up.
We do
Very
indeed.
picturesque
And this is
scene here.
picturesque. This is Saturday, September 1st.
And this is Houston.
This is Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
These are petrochemical facilities along the Houston Canal.
This is from the Natural Resources Defense Council.
The oil and gas industry wants us to protect it from climate change.
Isn't that amazing? The state of Texas is pursuing a $12 billion, mostly taxpayer-funded project to erect a 60-mile-long barrier made up of concrete seawalls, steel levees, and the like to keep rising waters from destroying all that is to be found along the Gulf coastline.
From the article, and this is well worth reading, there's an irony to this.
Yeah, I guess there is.
For decades, the oil and gas industry has forcefully spewed out misleading statements and anti-science cynicism in regard to the role that fossil fuels play in causing climate change, calling climate change a hoax, or falsely insisting that it does not exist. It has little or nothing to do with the oil this is what they're saying, it has little or nothing to do with the oil we continue to extract, produce, consume, and burn at record levels. But they want us to fund a 60-mile seawall to protect their refineries.
And you know, one of the things that really bothers me about this, that seawall is going to be, my recollection is that seawall was going to be something like 13 feet tall. And when I read that, I thought, you know, that's not only a few inches from the height of the seawall that they put up at Fukushima Daiichi, which...
Most of that seawall is going to be on the river.
Yeah, but even so, you know, I'm not anywhere near as concerned about tsunamis as I am about just general flooding. Any seawall you put up...
Never floods in Houston.
Never floods in Houston, right? What happens, you know, the Hurricane Harvey brought 40 inches of rain.
No, it can't happen. 40 inches can't happen.
Yeah, when you've got a seawall, a big tall seawall like the one that they're talking about building, 40 inches of rain is not going to drain out.
40 inches is not quite 13 feet, is it?
No, it's not 13 feet. But on the other hand,
it's about 3 feet.
With a rising, the land is subsiding and the sea is rising, and between the two of those, that 13-foot seawall, within 30 years might not be enough to protect it. And the levees around New Orleans didn't protect New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, and in fact, they had exactly the same problem that I was referring to earlier. They had flooding come in, and then how does it leave? It has to be pumped out.
Yeah.
You know, and in order to pump it out, they had to repair the levees first. So you know, Katrina was just a complete disaster. So I'm not sure that this is such a good idea one way or the other. But the fact that the oil industry is saying, well, we're not making the ocean level rise, but they are going up, so you're going to have to help us out here.
It's ironic. It really is.
Yeah, it really is.
That's the best word for it.
Yep.
Let's move along here.
We've got an item from CNN.
They usually have pretty good items.
Yeah.
Inspector General to review whether politics influences EPA's science. Duh.
The EPA Inspector General's office announced that it will review the, quote, extent and type of employee concerns, if any, with scientific integrity, end quote. This review is significant because of the Trump administration's focus on how the EPA and other offices conduct and use science.
There's not much we can say about this.
Well, it's except that, you know, the employees at the EPA, and not just they, but a bunch of other people, are concerned about whether the EPA is actually using science or just politics to get this stuff done.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the things that's ironic about this is that the people who are behind the officers in the EPA and the DOE and so forth who side with the Trump administration just say the science is politically motivated.
Yeah.
Accusing 98% or 97% of scientists as being on the side of...
They're getting paid.
Yeah, they're all getting paid off by the wind industry or something. I don't know. But nevertheless, yes.
Well, this one, we've talked about the wildfires. Everybody's aware of the wildfires on the West Coast.
Yep.
Lawmakers approve bill that makes PG&E, which is the local utility,
Yep.
ratepayers share wildfire costs.
This is from Santa Rosa Press Democrat. PG&E will be allowed to have ratepayers shoulder the sum of the multi-billion-dollar cost of last year's wildfires under a bill approved by both houses of the California legislature. But PG&E must open its books for an examination by regulators. You know, one of the things that's interesting about this is this doesn't even address the wildfires that took place this year.
No, they're going back to about 2016 or 2013.
2017. But you know, the amount of fire dam, the area of the West that has burned down so far this year is about equal to the size of the state of Maryland.
Yes, we'll talk about that a little bit later, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly mentioned.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that's going on here is the law on one hand and the actual practice discovered by investigators is that the utilities have done things, or not done things is more a better way of saying it, that has promoted these fires. Now, they're supposed to keep their trees away from power lines. They haven't been doing it. Okay, stuff like that. So,
but the problem is, if the power line comes down for reasons that are not related to the trees or anything that they've done wrong, they're still
liable. But
so,
investigators have found evidence that the utility is violating safety codes regarding brush clearance around power lines in 11 of the blazes.
Yeah.
You know, so they've turned around and they said, help, we need help. We did it, you know, but you guys are going to have to pay for it.
Well, the fact of the matter is the ratepayers are going to have to pay for this, or the taxpayers are going to have to pay for it. If PG&E has to pay for it by itself without raising rates, they're going to go bankrupt. Yeah. And then what happens? Well, they don't pay for it. Yeah. Everybody's in trouble. That's right.
Well, it isn't as bad as it sounds, because the average residential customer would pay about $5 a year for every $1 billion of state financing of this liability.
Right.
So it's not terrible that it's not going to whack these guys.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Let's move up to Sunday, September the 2nd. We got another picture here.
This is from Gizmodo, UK.
There we go. That's a kind of a nice picture.
Isn't it?
Companies have bought more clean energy than ever this year. And it's only August.
According to the Rocky Mountain Institute's Business Renewables Center, increased corporate procurements of renewable energy have already made this year a record breaker, with 4 months still to go. There are nearly 60 companies leading the way. These are just companies leading the way. But, you know, this is really kind of impressive.
Well, we've talked about this a little bit before, and most of these companies are well known, like Facebook and Google and
Coca-Cola.
Yeah, Coca-Cola. Well, many of the tech companies on the list are tech companies.
Yes.
And what they're using the power for is their data centers.
Yes.
Which are just huge banks of computers.
Yes.
Where they got to save everything. That costs a lot to run.
Right.
And that's what they're doing.
Yep.
Facebook, by the way, is the clear leader in 2018. The social network signed off on 1 gigawatt of renewable energy.
That's enough to fry an egg.
A little bit more than that.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's move on to France here.
To France, we have an item from CP24, Toronto's breaking news, but it's not about Canada, it's about France.
It's about Champagne.
Champagne.
Champagne region struggles to adapt for climate change.
Temperatures have risen 1.2 degrees Celsius, which is 2.16 degrees Fahrenheit, in 30 years. And grape pickers are scrambling to bring in yet another early harvest. The specter of climate change is haunting the vineyards of France, and its creeping effects, including chaotic weather, are becoming the new normal. Now, this is a serious problem. I mean, this is even more serious because it affects the amount of grapes that are harvested,
Yep.
but it also affects their quality.
Well, it's happening earlier in the year than normal. It's the
And-
5th time in 15 years that the harvest has started so early.
Yeah,
So there are definitely some climate problems there.
there are.
And last year, they had rainstorms and hail at this time of year, so it compromised last year's harvest.
Right.
And this is an interesting thing from the article. To counter the effects of warming, scientists are inseminating flowering grapes with pollen from lab plants to try and develop more weather-resistant varieties.
Well, this is
So
something.
they know what's going on.
Yeah, this is something that the French have had this kind of problem before. You know, there's possibly not a wine grape plant in France, not a single vine that's actually growing on native French roots,
Okay.
because they had a root louse that got introduced from California.
No kidding.
It might have been 100 years
Root
ago.
louse?
Root louse.
Wow, never even heard of
Grape
such a
root
thing.
louse. And these things came in. They had been in California, but somehow they got to France and they just overran destroyed
Destroy the roots.
roots. And so, in order to keep the grapes, classic French grapes, going, they had to graft them onto American rootstocks that already knew about that.
They were immune to this
They
root
were,
louse.
yeah, not immune, but they were resistant. And the result of that was that the wines that used to take 30 years to mature and were unbelievable when they were 30 years old, took 7 years to mature and were not as good. So, you know, we can't experience those older French wines from around 1900 or earlier because things have changed. Well, now this is going to bring about changes
too.
also.
And the Champagne people are very critical about the product.
Yes, they are. Okay, our next item is from Power Magazine, and we
got a
have a
nice
picture here
picture coming up
of a
here.
dam in Portugal, the Frades II Dam, which is a hydro dam.
I didn't mention in the last article, which came from the Toronto newspaper.
Yeah.
Yesterday, well, it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before, it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
Toronto could break a 73-year-old temperature record today,
Oh, wow.
which is 90 degrees, by the way.
Okay, Power Magazine.
Award-winning pump storage hydro facility, a modern marvel.
Now, this is a facility like the Hoover Dam that we were talking about,
Well, this is pretty interesting.
but
let's
they've
get
already
into it.
done the conversion. The Frades II pumped storage project in Portugal took advantage of existing dams, more than one. This is just one of them.
It's a whole string of them.
Yeah, for a scheme that includes the largest variable speed reversible units ever installed in Europe. The facility provides a versatile option for managing wind and power fluctuations. And this is particularly interesting to me because Portugal is a country that has been getting very close to 100% renewable source.
They've got a lot of hydro.
They've got a lot of hydro, and they're converting some of it to pumped storage because they're adding so
Renewables.
much wind and solar.
Yeah. Well, this Freddy's 2, or however you pronounce it, Fridays, takes advantage of a 1,400-foot waterhead between the existing upstream dam and the existing downstream reservoir.
And how
1,400 feet.
How do you pump water up 1,400 feet?
Well, it's a relatively short 3-mile distance. Okay, and the underground plant includes a tunnel designed to flow over 200 feet per second.
Wow.
So they know what they're doing,
Yeah, they do.
and they have a hell of an opportunity for pump storage there.
Yep. We are up to Monday, September 3rd, and we have a rather worrying article here from Water Online.
Yeah, I got a picture, but that's from the next one.
Yeah.
Can Miami's aquifer survive climate change?
Climate change is endangering drinking water resources in Miami-Dade County. The geography of the Miami area makes it particularly difficult to protect drinking water resources. Officials are puzzling over how Miami can keep its water safe and what that will cost as sea levels rise. And what's happening here is the aquifer that they're drawing from when they pump from wells is being encroached on by salt water from the ocean because the ocean level is rising.
And the aquifer happens to be particularly porous rock.
Right.
So it's just sucking this ocean water up.
And there's not much they can do about that. So they have to figure out what their options are.
Well, it's interesting because I've heard been referenced about 5 or 6 articles on this exact same thing on the net.
Yeah.
People are talking about it. And Miami is in a lot of trouble.
Well, they're already spending $500 million raising their road levels and putting in valves.
And that has nothing to do with
it. And
it.
that has nothing to do with this. So, you know, it's just like yet another hit that Miami is taking. And, you know.
Can Miami's aquifer survive climate change?
Maybe
we don't know that it can.
No, we don't. In fact, looking at the article, it strikes me that it probably cannot. Okay, should we go on?
Well, there's a quick takeaway here. One recent report estimated that Miami has the most to lose in terms of financial assets of any coastal city in the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Above Guangzhou, China, and New York City, which are also endangered.
Yes. Is there an endangered cities list? There should be.
There should be.
Okay.
Now,
Our next item is from phys.org, phys.org.
And we got a picture.
We have a picture here of a...
And that's not... Oh, is that the picture? Yeah, that's the picture.
The picture.
I've got it. I shrank the picture to get some space here, and it looks a lot different. But there it is.
There it is.
Driven by climate change, fire reshapes the U.S. West. By the way, this is a very long and interesting article about fires and fire change with a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
If you got the time, it's well worth looking up.
It's worth looking at. Wildfires in the U.S. have charred more than 10,000 square miles this year, with large fires still burning in every western state, including many that are not fully contained. Whether sparked by lightning or humans, fire has long been a force shaping the landscape of the West.
This is where they mentioned 10,000 square miles is larger than the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
This is the article.
And that's what has burned down already.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't count the forest fires that have happened in Canada.
It doesn't even mention Canada.
No.
And there's more fires going on in Canada
Yeah.
than there is in the U.S.
Yes. So, I don't know, but my bet is that if some high school science lab wanted to go out and get a sample of the air, they could probably trace some of the material in that sample to fires in the West.
Well, we saw a map. I don't know if we put it up I think we put it up, but it shows where the fire is extending. It's going to St. Louis, almost to Detroit.
Those are the areas not where you can detect it, but where it actually poses a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
And when you're talking about detecting things, you're talking about I don't know, but my guess is that you could detect these fires in Ireland.
Okay. Yeah. So that's right. It's more than just detecting. These are visible effects of the smoke.
Right.
Wow.
Okay. We are up to, no, we're still in September 3rd, and we've got an item from ABC News, which is not American Broadcast Company. It's in Australia.
Australian Broadcasting Company. Boy, those who watch this show know a lot more about Australia than most Americans, don't they?
I would bet. But there's a lot going on in Australia.
Oh, yeah. The reality is new coal power is not the answer for cheaper electricity bills.
The tipping point has been reached. This is really important. Renewable energy is now a cheaper source of power for Australia's future electricity needs than coal. The cold, hard numbers show it, and no less an authority than the Australian energy market operator agrees. Who disagrees? Well, there's a guy in Australia who is the clone of Donald Trump. Not perfect clone, because he doesn't have a comb over. But, you know, what can I say?
Well, from the article, the only way for renewable power prices is down.
Yeah. That's true. And, you know, there's a reason for that. And the reason is because it's wind power. It's fairly simple. Turbines, you know, how do you put them together? Even so, it's technology. Solar power, it's technology. Batteries, it's technology. Coal, it's a product. Yeah. Oil, it's a product. And
yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
The costs of technologies are subject to learning curves. The more you work with them, the lower the price gets. And
well,
so,
according to the article, the lowest cost of electricity from a new Australian coal producer is $100 US a megawatt hour.
Oh my gosh.
That's like 10 cents.
Yeah.
That's the lowest price. And according again to the article, it doesn't make sense for them to do it unless they can get it down to 60 cents. 6 cents.
Yeah, well.
$60.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen.
And Australian wind and solar are approaching $40.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's over.
It's
over.
Well, the fact is it's over in the United States as well, except
yeah.
that we've got politicians and businessmen who are willing to finance politicians to get them into office, who want to make sure that that coal is still dug and burned, and want to make sure that the gas is still drilled. We have an interesting article coming up.
A nice picture coming up
on gas, by the way. We're up to Tuesday, September 4th, and this is an interesting concept, and I have to tell you honestly, I don't understand the physics. It's a long, well-known thing in physics, but I don't understand it. I should have read it up on
Well, it's an very interesting article to me.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this. I've known about these wind towers for a long time, and wondering why they don't use it for transoceanic shipping.
Yeah.
And the article does really explain that.
Yep.
But we'll get into that. Emissions from huge vessels are about to get slashed with the use of rotor sails. Large-scale testing begins.
2 30-meter tall rotor scales. Look at that picture. Those things are 30 meters tall. Now, what does that mean?
That's 100 feet.
They're 10 stories tall.
Yeah.
You know,
They're
big. 2 30-meter tall rotor sails have been installed on board the product tanker vessel Maersk Pelican, targeting a reduction in fuel cost and associated emissions on typical global shipping routes of 7 to 10%. This is from Clean Technica.
Well, the only way that I can understand this is it's similar to a baseball pitcher throwing a curveball.
Yeah.
Okay, as a matter of fact, it is
similar.
Physically the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And in this particular case, and this is why they can't really be used for propulsion, because the way the wind is blowing doesn't push these things. It pushes them at right angles.
Right.
So the wind has to be blowing in the right direction for them to get forward motion out of this.
Yes.
So what they're doing instead is, instead of using these things to propel the ship, they're using these things to lower the cost of fossil fuel that's propelling the ship. It's auxiliary.
Or other, because a lot of ships are getting converted to, a lot of shipping, I should say, is starting to get converted to electric. And this is happening more and more in Iceland, where they're actually mandating the conversion of the entire fishing fleet to electric power.
Well, we're talking about ocean-going vessels.
Yes, we are. And
tankers and freighters. I don't think they're going
tankers and freighters,
yet.
not yet. But it's hard to know exactly what they're going to be up to over the years.
Well, there's one of the big problems about these large vessels. The engines typically burn very heavy fuels,
Yes,
so-called bunker
they're
oil.
unbelievably polluting.
They are the worst.
Unbelievable. It's like one ship produces as much pollution as 100,000 tractor trailers.
It's loaded with sulfur. Well, it's everything left after they make gasoline, diesel
Yeah,
fuel.
right.
That's what it says. It's what's left over when crude oil has been refined into all the lighter products such as gasoline and diesel.
Yep.
And it is lousy. So if you can
It's
save
terrible.
on using it, you're helping the earth.
Yep. Our next item is from the Washington Examiner.
We don't have a picture for
And
this.
we don't have a picture
Ah,
for that.
Shucks.
Shucks.
I'll put you up there. Utilities are reluctant to invest in coal plants, even after Trump tries to save them.
Interesting piece of work here done by the
It is,
Washington
really.
Examiner. No utilities contacted by the Washington Examiner said they would commit to improving their coal plants or reevaluate planned retirements because of the EPA's Affordable Clean Energy Rule, also known as the Dirty Energy Plan. And none of them have plans to build new plants. I looked,
It's
by the way.
economics.
They have between now and the year 2025, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has one coal unit that is technically being working on coming online to produce 17 megawatts of power. That's for the next 5 years or 7 years or whatever it is.
Same thing's happening in Europe.
And yeah, they're just not building plants. There's no way a utility could bring a new coal plant online in the next 5 years. It just couldn't happen because
Not possible.
it's not in the cards. And why would they keep them open? We've got to a point now where wind energy and solar energy and batteries have got to the point where it's cheaper to close the coal plants and replace them with new facilities that are renewable.
Well, here's the bottom line. Coal's portion of the electrical generation mix, which was nearly 50% a decade ago, is predicted to fall below 30% this year.
Yeah.
So it's dropping, and it's dropping quick.
Yep. Now we've got an article from the Daily Tar Heel.
Yeah. So it sort of exploded. The rapid rise of solar energy in North Carolina. Nobody expected this.
Nobody expected it. It's been incredible watching what's going on because I go to the news every day and, very likely I see something going on in North Carolina where I never would have expected this. Solar energy growth in North Carolina is among the fastest in the country, according to Environment North Carolina report. It shows no signs of slowing down. Between 2008 and 2017, the state's solar energy production rose from 7 gigawatt hours to 5,783 gigawatt hours.
Well, if you do the math, that's 800 times. So, North Carolina is now third in the nation for solar electricity production growth.
But you know what, Tom? This could happen anywhere in the country.
Oh, yeah.
They're putting up solar panels in Alaska.
Which almost doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, unless you've got really good tracking systems. You can watch the sun go all the way around. Okay.
Well, this is true. There's the same amount of, they use the word insolation.
Insolation.
Happens everywhere on Earth.
Although, it's true, on the poles, the sun is so low, even when it's high,
exactly, yep.
that the value of that insolation is not terribly
point.
high. But nevertheless, you don't have to get very far from the poles before the summertime sunshine is worthwhile. So
No, that's true.
yeah,
That's true.
a lot of solar going up in places like the UK, which is far, far north of where we are. Okay, we are up to Wednesday, September 5th. And we have a picture here of an Australian dairy farm.
Well, we're way ahead of time today.
Are we?
11 minutes left.
Well, we've got a couple of things that we can talk about at length.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Well, there's an image coming up here.
Yeah, that's right. This is from One Step Off the Grid.
Farmers to flock to solar and battery storage as power costs bite.
A report from Commonwealth Bank of Australia suggests the shift to solar and battery storage in the nation's expansive agribusiness sector has only just begun. It says a staggering 76% of all farmers nationwide are planning to tap solar and battery storage. Now, people in the United States are going to have a little bit of trouble possibly understanding why this would happen, but it's a combination of things, and one of them is that Australia, which is really heavily dependent on coal, has extremely high energy costs.
Yeah, they do.
And part of that is because they're using backward technology in a lot of places, and part of it is because they have a relatively small population. I think it's, what, 32 million, something? It's a tenth of the United States.
It's down around there, 30, 35, something like
And
that. Yeah.
it's got that population in an area that's about the size of the United States.
Yep.
A little bit smaller.
And half of that is on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Half of that is on the West Coast. And almost nothing is in the middle.
Where all the farms are. No, the farms aren't really in the middle. The farms are in Victoria and New South Wales. A lot of the farms are near the East Coast. But nevertheless, in order to get power, and you know, power plants are put in places that are convenient, largely for cities and things
Where
like
the population
that.
is.
Where the population is. In order to get that power out to the farms and out to the communities that are near the farms, they have to build long transmission lines, which are very costly to build, very costly to maintain.
And the demand isn't there.
And the demand isn't there. So they have to increase the prices in order to cover the cost of those transmission lines, which increases
Well, one of the
cost.
things this article mentions is a lot of this power in the farming areas is going for irrigation.
Yes.
And
they
the
need the
irrigation
power.
has been being run by diesel.
Right.
Okay, so it's a big opportunity to replace the diesel
Yes.
with solar.
Yes.
And it makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of sun in central
There's
Australia.
a lot of sun, and also when you're doing irrigation, you're moving water, and the water can be moved into tanks. It can be pumped into the fields, out to the fields. It can be put in the fields, and it's not going to disappear overnight. So it doesn't matter that the sun only shines during the day.
Correct.
You know.
Yep.
And this is it's one of many areas of work where that is true, but it's just one of those things where and it's not just it's not just the farmers, it's also everybody in Australia is hit by power prices, high power prices.
They do have high prices.
And the people are moving to solar and battery storage for themselves, personally, for their own homes. And so in Queensland, which doesn't have a lot of tall buildings, you know, which means that a lot of people have got rooftops they can put solar power on. A third of the people in Queensland live in houses that have solar power.
A third of the people
A
at
third.
this point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they, you know, we talked earlier today about the fact that the power outage that they had was supplied by solar power and batteries from people's homes.
That was just locally produced. Yeah.
Locally produced, which
Distributed
tells
power.
you why net metering is very fair. Even if the cost of the power is a little bit high, net metering is fair because the people who are providing the power have made an investment on which they should be getting some kind of return, and they are decreasing the cost of everybody else's power supply because the high cost power that comes up during the daytime is being offset by their batteries and so forth.
Well, from the article, and they're talking about farms now, the potential for solar and battery storage to power energy-intensive farming applications like irrigation around the country is huge.
Huge, absolutely.
And the need
huge.
is even greater. And there's a quote by the author there. I see hundreds of irrigation pumps out there connected to filthy diesel.
Yeah.
The opportunity is great. I mean,
The
why not?
opportunity is
Right
great.
next to the pump, you got yourself a little solar array.
That's right.
Done.
They're doing
Over.
this also in other countries. India is pushing this. The
Well, it
central
just happens to
government.
be particularly important for Australia because of the way Australia is
Yeah.
set up.
Yep. Okay, our next
This is
item
the last item.
No, it's not. We have two.
No, this is the last item coming up.
EU, the EU thing. We've got an item from Clean Technica and another
Oh,
one
we
from
got
the New
two.
York
They
Times.
look like looks like one, but it's two.
Okay.
There's a line there.
Go ahead.
EU removes trade barriers on Chinese solar imports. This is significant.
Donald Trump is not winning the trade war. Not winning the trade war. Following reports last week that the EU is considering scrapping import controls on solar panels and cells from China, the European Commission has announced that it will remove trade duties on solar panels and cells imported from China, Taiwan, and Malaysia. Now, this is, the solar stuff was the first thing Donald Trump cited as a target for a trade war with China. And when he did this, the first thing that he did was he put those tariffs out, and then he also said, and by the way, we're going to have tariffs on everybody who's selling large amounts of solar panels to the United States. And then he said, and we're also going to have other tariffs on China. But he also put up tariffs on just about all of the important countries that you could imagine.
Including Canada.
Including Canada and Mexico.
Canada's quite upset.
Well, the Canadians came out and they said, well, I mean, we're not altogether happy about this thing with the Chinese solar panels, but we'll support the United States. They're an ally of ours. And then the United States comes out, Donald Trump says, well, we're going to slap tariffs on items that come from Canada too. Well, if you're going to make everybody your enemy, what do you expect them to do? Are they going to?
They're not going to pat you on the back.
The European Union is not going to maintain trade tariffs just because Donald Trump wants them to. So what do? Well, the trade tariffs were scheduled to be eliminated. They're being eliminated. It's that simple. And so what is the United States doing? Having said we're not going to buy your solar panels anymore, the Chinese have said, okay, well, at this point they've got another opportunity. And you know what? The price of the solar panels has gone down enough that they're still selling them in the United States. Yeah. So there's been no benefit to this whole thing except revenues for the federal government. They have benefited, but that's not going to last.
Not at all.
Okay, do we have more on that one, or should we go to our last item?
Well, just from a takeaway from the article, by removing the trade duties, the European Commission has today lifted the single biggest barrier to solar growth in Europe.
Yeah.
So solar is going to be growing in Europe because of exactly
Which
this.
means that markets for coal, natural gas, and oil are going to be diminishing. Okay, our last item is from the New York Times. This is a weird picture.
That's a picture of fracking.
Yes, and the lower part of it is not where the drill goes, it's where the stock market is going to go.
That's exactly right. The next financial crisis lurks underground.
Some of the fracking's biggest skeptics are on Wall Street. They argue that the industry's financial foundation is unstable. It has not proven that it can make money.
Interesting point.
It's an interesting point. The industry is having a very bad history of money going in and never coming out, says one hedge fund manager. And Tom, you and I have been talking about this for years. The fact that the solar, the fracking industry is financed by loans, and they've got to a point, long since got to a point where they are taking out new loans in order to pay the interest on the old loans. So this is kind of like having,
Don't they call that a Ponzi scheme?
Well, it's not quite, but there was a time when inflation was so bad. This was under the Carter administration, and I don't blame Jimmy Carter for this. I think this is partly because of things that happened during the Nixon administration. But inflation was so bad that people were buying things now because it was cheaper than buying things a year from now, because the prices were going up so fast. And some people discovered that you could get a credit card, And then when it was big enough, you could apply for another credit card with a transfer to pay off the first credit card.
That's still going on.
And that it is. And that increased your credit score because you'd paid the thing off. And if you could keep doing this and spend thousands of dollars every year, more than you were making, by just building up debt.
And meanwhile, you are in debt.
Yeah, and the debt is getting bigger, and at some point, they get to a point where they can't pay their bills anymore because the interest rate
It's happening
is
now.
so
We're seeing
high.
it.
It is, and here is a business where the entire industry is built on that kind of operation. Bye.
Adios.
Come back next time.